treated as seriously as loss of life on the land or in the air. They can get these missiles dead on target on any suburb of Moscow, yet don't seem to be able to detect trawlers just trundling along a few feet above them.
The Irish Triangle is a busy sea of fishermen and ferry boats. And running silent, running deep, is the fear and reminder that all of the British Isles, all of Europe, is the front line. And one way or another, we're all caught by the net.
Anytime you're listening to the television news, and you hear a body's been found washed up on some shore, here or in Ireland, you wonder, is it one of them?
For today, Dennis Murphy, NBC News, London.
7:37, we're going to talk to U.S. Open winner Curtis Strange in just a moment. First, let's hear from another Virginian. Willard Scott is on duty in Washington. Willard.
Hey, thank you, Brian. They're all over the place, those Virginians. You got to watch them. Hey, you know, one of the greatest businesses in the world is the automobile repair business. What'd you say? There was one for every 200 cars on the road, a mechanic. It is a fantastic opportunity, and the AAA in Plymouth got together back in 1949 to honor high school kids who had maybe chosen that as a career or who were interested in mechanics, and also to encourage youngsters to get into mechanics. Donald Butch Hatfield from?
Scott. Plus.
Scott, I'm sorry. And you're from?
Minnesota.
St. Paul, Minnesota. And we have Rhonda Hicks. Good morning.
Good morning.
And you from?
Roanoke, Virginia.
And this beautiful lady over here, I believe, is from Hawaii, Tammy Cottis.
Hi.
How are you? Were you
Fine.
in high school?
Kaiser High School.
And over here, Butch, I introduced you first. And you're from Buchanan, West Virginia. What high school?
Fred Eberly Tech Center.
You all are here to participate in get, what, $775,000 worth of scholarships are given. Do you like to work on old cars or new cars better?
I prefer the old ones. They're a little easier to work on, not as complex.
I was going to say, that's incredible. And you used to fix a Model T Ford. You said, well, what was wrong with it?
Just the regulators, that's all.
How'd you get interested in all this stuff?
Just my parents or my dad was into it, and I just kind of got into it in school and enjoyed it ever since.
You going to be mechanics when you finish school?
Maybe. I don't know yet.
But you just enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming by, and also good luck in your chosen career. And as I say, it's one of the best businesses in the world. You work 5 days a week. You can make up to $40,000, $50,000 a year, and people will absolutely adore you because a good mechanic is a good friend. Hey, let's check the weather map this morning. Mr. Goodrich will put his thing down here. Let's check and see what we have in store for our weather fans for the week ahead. And Uncle Max, could you switch the monitor? Otherwise, I am dead as a dodo. There you go. I'm looking at a picture of CBS Morning News here. And, oh, that Kathleen Sullivan, lovely. Anyway, week's temps below normal in the southeast, wet weather and precip. Hey, that's snapped into place across the upper Mississippi, the northern plains, and the northwest. And guess what? In the east, where it hasn't rained for at least 2 hours now, it's going to rain right on through Wednesday and maybe clear up about Thursday or Friday. Not a bad weather pattern across the country. Here's what's happening in your world even as we speak.
Mostly sunny and in the mid-80s inland today. Partly cloudy tonight, a low around 60 degrees. Partly sunny, more humid tomorrow. A chance of showers later, a high around 80.
I wanted to try to slip one in anyway. Annette Wool of Ocean View, New Jersey is 100, and Bernice Mulvey of Waltham, Mass is 102. Happy birthday to you. Joe Woody is standing by, and he's about 27, I believe.
Something like that. Well, you're close. Sportsman of the Week is brought to you by the American Express Traveler's Checks. Don't leave home without them. And now here's one who shot a few doubles yesterday.
All right, Joe, thank you. Our choice for this Monday's Sportsman of the Week honors was made easy for us at Oak Hill Country Club on Sunday. That's where Curtis Strange captured his second straight U.S. Open championship. His play wasn't spectacular, but it was flawless. As pars became precious, the 34-year-old Virginian made just one birdie on his last 38 holes. But one was all he needed. This birdie putt on the 16th Sunday all but assured Strange of the victory and helped him become the first man to win back-to-back U.S. Open titles since Ben Hogan did it back in 50 and 51, 38 years ago. A big moment for Curtis and his wife, Sarah. And the champion is back at the scene of his triumph, the 18th, this morning at Oak Hill in Rochester, New York. Curtis, good morning and congratulations.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning.
I watched you hit it on Saturday, and you hit it kind of ugly. How did you manage to get it adjusted by Sunday?
Thank you, Brian. Don't beat around the bush next time. You know, the Open, there's so many ups and downs in the Open, and it's difficult to play 4 rounds that you go home at night and proud of yourself. And I was proud of Saturday because it didn't get away anymore. 73 was not a good score, but it wasn't too bad the way I played. I went to the practice tee and stayed for a good 45 minutes and found something, and it worked yesterday.
Yeah, you were 3 back coming into Sunday's round. Did you think you had a good chance?
Well, 3 back any time going into the last round of the Open isn't a whole lot because it's such a long day. It's such a difficult golf course at Oak Hill, and we're playing for the U.S. Open. Anything can happen, as it did yesterday. Even par, caught and the leader and won.
I was watching you throughout most of the day, and in the early part of the day, you were a little tight-lipped throughout the round. Was it frustrating to just make par after par after par? Was it getting to you?
Par in the Open on any hole is not bad, Bryant. I was hitting good shots, and I wanted to go out and get some birdies off the start to put some heat on Tom. That was my main concern starting the day. But I didn't do it. I had to stay patient. It's such a key in the Open, and it is for me. That's the way I play. And to come in and make a couple good par putts got me going, and then the birdie putt at 16 actually won the golf tournament for me.
What do you tell yourself, Curtis? Help out the rest of us who get frustrated with a bad shot or who want to try to hit it close or get a good score. What do you tell yourself to stay patient?
That we're playing in the U.S. Open. And it's a very difficult week. It's a long week. It's a frustrating week. Even for the guy who wins, it's a very frustrating week. But for the average guy, you have to be realistic with yourself and what you can actually do. And what I thought I could do yesterday was play a good, solid round and win, lose, or draw. When you're coming from behind, you have to make something happen sometimes. And when you're in the lead, there's more pressure. I was there last year, and there is definitely more pressure. Yesterday, I kind of had nothing to lose and everything to gain being 3 back, and I went out and played what I thought was a pretty solid round.
Yeah. With 14 holes to play, Tom Kite had a 3-stroke lead before his game went south on him. Were you aware of how badly things were going for him behind you?
No, I wasn't. When he birdied, I think the 2nd or 3rd hole, I thought he was in control. And what I had to keep telling myself, Bryant, was that he was in control because I had to feel like I had to make something happen. And then the biggest surprise of the day, and when everybody was let back in the tournament, was when Tom made triple bogey at the 5th hole. Everybody perked up. Everybody's blood started flowing right then, and it was almost like me making 3 birdies. I'd all of a sudden gone from 4 back to 1 back, and as I said yesterday, they played back into my hands. And what that means is my game is suited for an open course, I feel like, and which is putting it in the fairway, putting it on the green, and making pars.
Yeah. Your win has put you beside Golf Immortals in the record book. Do you feel comfortable there? Do you belong?
Well, the record, I'm going to let the record speak for itself if I belong or not. I don't get caught up in all of that. I want to go play this week as good as I can in Canada, but it's a great feeling to do something that some of the great players in the game have never done. More important than winning back-to-back, I think, Brian, is that I have won 2 U.S. Opens. And I think just to show how tough that is back-to-back is that it hasn't been done in almost 40 years. And the great Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Tom Watson, whoever it might have been, haven't done that. And I feel like I played very, very good golf, but I was also very fortunate.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. Are people talking to you about Willie Anderson?
They did yesterday, 1901, 2, and 3. We might get him next year.
Hey, Curtis, good luck. Congratulations. Nice going.
Thank you, Bryant.
We're coming up on 45 past the hour. We're back in a moment, right after this.
From the days when he wrote Oh, Jerusalem and his Paris Burning with Dominique Lapierre, all the way through to his latest novel, or his last novel, Fall from Grace, readers have known they can count on Larry Collins for a terrific story wonderfully told. But his latest, Maze, takes us further afield than usual to the world of mind control, a world which brought us one of the scariest portrayals of brainwashing ever made in the movie The Manchurian Candidate.
Who's that little fellow sitting next to the captain?
That's Bobby Lembeck. Our mascot, I guess you'd call him.
Doesn't look old enough to be in your army.
I guess he isn't, but there he is, ma'am.
Shoot Bobby, Raymond. Through the forehead.
Yes, ma'am.
And Larry Collins is here this morning to explain his version of mind control portrayed so frighteningly in that movie. Good morning.
Good morning, Deborah.
There is a difference, according to one of the characters in your book, between brainwashing as we understand it and mind control.
Yes, there's brainwashing doesn't exist, and you could never do what is portrayed in The Manchurian Candidate. The question is there a way by which someone's emotions might be manipulated at a distance through some form of electromagnetic means? And the answer to that is very probably yes.
In reality or in your book?
In both.
In both.
In both. We already have demonstrated, it's been in laboratories, that animals' behavior can be modified with certain very precise electromagnetic fields. There's a man in Spain who has, it's fascinating, he has two pools of fighting fish divided by a glass, and they're trying to kill each other. He puts a certain field on, and all of a sudden they turn into pussycats. They stop fighting.
Readers of yours know how incredibly detailed your research is. It took you 2.5 years to research this book, which is what makes it such compelling reading. Going through this, I keep asking myself, can this really happen? So I ask you, is it possible to, as the book does, control the President of the United States through these electromagnetic fields?
Well, obviously I'm indulging in a certain author's hyperbole in some of May's. After all, that's what we're entitled to do as novelists. But the question, can you influence someone's emotional comportment, is a very real question. I discovered there was an operation in the Reagan years called Sleeping Beauty, which asked the question, can we use certain forms of electromagnetic fields in terrorist and hostage situations? Could we, for example, discombobulate a terrorist by electromagnetic means for just a couple of minutes, just the time to allow a SWAT team to come in and free his hostages? And I know that there are experiments carried out in Canada under U.S. government financing with rats to answer this question. Suppose you have a mob that's trying to storm the American embassy in Iran. Could you find a way to make that mob suddenly much less aggressive? For example, could you make them all violently ill? It was found that you could do this with rats. Now, rats aren't human beings, and the lab is not real life, but the step is also not an absolutely unbreakable.
There was a time when everybody thought the possibility of splitting atoms and creating nuclear explosions was nothing more than science fiction material. Are we at the same stage?
Well, I think in many ways, we have made so much progress in the last decade in understanding how the human mind works. This is going to bring enormous benefits to man. But like all of our great scientific leaps forward, there is the other side of the coin. Many people think that neurologists today are where atomic physicists were in 1936, but that the consequences of what they're going to learn will be far more important for our future.
It makes for great reading and great conversation. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Deborah.
The book is called Maze. The author is Larry Collins. Here's Joe Whitty.
Thanks, Deborah. Here's a word from Scope. For a positive reaction, unleash the power of Scope.
On Cross Country this morning, today correspondent Mike Leonard stays right in his hometown of Winnetka, Illinois, to make a case for vanilla, a flavor that he claims is unappreciated.
This is for you, Jane. This
What is that?
chocolate barbarian.
What's with this insatiable appetite for chocolate stories? On TV, in print, obviously.
There's a mystique about chocolate.
Compared to vanilla, it does seem to leap off the shelf at you. Put it this way.
Chocolate is like the guy on camera, the front man who hogs the spotlight, while the steady people behind the scenes, the vanillas, happily do the bulk of the work. Right?
Right.
Right. Right.
That's right.
Exactly.
Take the average guy. He orders vanilla. What does that mean?
I'm just an average guy.
An average guy who does his job well and gets very little praise. The glue, the workhorse, hidden in the background of Chicago's Streeterville studios, quietly making sure that everything sounds perfect for singer-songwriter Jim Tullio.
Vanilla is really one hell of a flavor to savor. Vanilla always gets the blame for being plain. It's a shame.
Darn right it's a shame, considering...
More people eat vanilla than eat chocolate. More people eat vanilla than any other flavor that we carry.
Ditto at the grocery store.
We seem to have a real hard time keeping vanilla on our shelves.
But it's chocolate that's on our minds.
I'm a real chocoholic.
I mean, have you ever heard of a vanilla-aholic? I've never heard of one.
Interesting question.
Could a chocolate lover's personality be just that much more outgoing?
Interesting question, too.
Vanilla's dilemma. Think about it.
It's up against chocolate. People want a lot of it. Strawberry is extraordinary. Lime green is so supreme. But vanilla is just vanilla.
Like everything else these days, it all has to do with image. says public relations executive Al Golan of Golan Harris.
You know, vanilla is a kind of a flavor that goes with anything. So you think that, and maybe that's the trouble with it. Maybe it's too general.
That's okay with Chat Nielsen of Nielsen Massey Vanillas in Lake Forest, Illinois. His business depends on vanilla blending into the background. And business is good. In fact, the more chocolate you buy, the more vanilla he sells. Yep, vanilla is one of the ingredients of chocolate.
Without the vanilla, it would not have the depth of flavor that it has.
Where else would you find vanilla? A better question would be, where wouldn't you find vanilla? It's everywhere, although never by itself.
You can't pick up a piece of vanilla neither. But you can chocolate. You use chocolate for a snack.
So the brown vanilla bean is out of sight and out of mind. The flavor that is indeed everywhere but in the news.
Never any big national story on it.
It isn't fair. If only we could right that wrong by writing something bold about vanilla. Make it a headline story. Can you imagine that? Nah, not vanilla.
It needs you like you need it, like a tree needs a rain, like a catcher needs a mitt. So please stop making it feel left out, but I still understand if you got your doubts. Vanilla is really one hell of a flavor to savor. Vanilla always gets the blame for being plain. It's a shame that singing a cappella. Vanilla is really one hell of a flavor to savor. Vanilla always gets the blame for being plain. It's a shame. But vanilla is really one hell of a flavor to savor. Vanilla.
For today, Mike Leonard, NBC News, Chicago.
Ooh, vanilla.
Thankfully, the flavor's got a future, even if the song doesn't. Coming up on 57 past, we're back in a moment right after this. It's the 19th morning of June of '89. Straight ahead in this hour, rationing health care. With costs climbing out of sight, some jurisdictions are starting to set priorities for what kind of health care they'll provide and what kind they won't. Critics say if they do, the ones who suffer in the situation will be the poor. We'll talk about it on After 8. We'll talk, too, with Julian Lennon. He has a new album out called Mr. Jordan, and no, it's not about basketball. We're back inside Studio 3B on a Monday morning. I'm Brian Gumbel. Deborah Norville is here today while Jane takes a 3-day weekend. She'll be back tomorrow. The arms talks in Geneva have been resumed. They were recessed back on November 15th. John Palmer is going to give us an update in just a moment. Deborah?
For some people, the question what to do with those old tires and tin cans that are laying around the house is a problem. Dennis Weaver has an interesting suggestion on what you could do with that stuff, like build a house with it. And Dr. Art Ulane has a report on stuttering and at what point parents should be concerned about a child who stutters.
8:01, let's move to the news desk right now. Once again, here's John Palmer.
Thank you, Brian. Deborah, good morning again. In the news this morning, U.S.-Soviet arms talks resumed this morning in Geneva after a 7-month break. The U.S. and Soviet negotiators will try to reach an agreement to reduce long-range nuclear weapons by 50%. U.S. negotiators also are expected to offer some new ideas on verification. This round of talks expected to last about 6 weeks. The USS Iowa is anchored off Kiel, West Germany this morning, and as correspondent Mike Betcher reports, there is some strong opposition to its presence in the harbor there.
The reception for the Iowa was not warm. Anti-nuclear activists from Greenpeace tried to block the giant ship's path into Kiel Harbor with rubber dinghies. They carried banners that read, "No nukes in Kiel." Greenpeace alleges that the Iowa is carrying nuclear weapons, a fact that the U.S. Navy routinely never confirms or denies. Eventually, West German police boats pushed the floating protest away from the battleship. The Iowa later anchored well away from shore, but inside the harbor. The battleship and its crew had come to Kiel to take part in the port city's annual nautical show. Kiel's mayor set the tone for the Iowa's cool reception when he said last week that the ship's crew was welcome here, but not the battleship itself. West Germans are becoming increasingly resistant to the placement of NATO's nuclear weapons on their territory. Just last week, they enthusiastically cheered Mikhail Gorbachev and his nuclear disarmament policies. The Iowa sailors received a better reception once they were on land. A dinner dance was held for them. Unintentionally, however, their battleship's arrival had highlighted again the debate in West Germany over the role it plays as host for NATO's nuclear weapons. Mike Betcher, NBC News, Frankfurt.
Still in Europe, Poland's Communist Party suffered another setback Sunday when all but one of its candidates lost in the second round of parliamentary elections. Although official results will not be known for 2 or perhaps 3 days, it appears Solidarity candidates will hold all but one of the 100 Senate seats and 1/3 of the seats in the lower house. In Greece, voters also rebuffed their government. Unofficial results show that the conservative New Democratic Party soundly defeated the Socialist Party of Premier Andreas Papandreou. But neither side earned a clear majority, and that could mean a coalition government. Papandreou was hurt by a personal and financial scandal. Chinese officials today postponed indefinitely a special session of the national legislature. The meeting had been scheduled before the Tiananmen Square massacre to discuss the demands of the pro-democracy movement. The Chinese government continues to enforce martial law in Beijing and to deny the events of June 3rd. But as the government shows firm control in the political arena, it appears to be foundering on the economic front. American and Japanese business ventures have pulled out of China, at least temporarily, and that could threaten China's fragile new economy. Most foreign investors say they'll return to China, but many fear it will not be business as usual for a long time. The 76-day-old miners' strike against the Pittston Coal Group spread to Kentucky today, where wildcat strikes closed 3 mines. 20,000 workers in 6 states have walked off their jobs in sympathy with the Pittston strikers, and union officials say that they expect workers in Nova Scotia and in the state of Alabama to walk out shortly. At issue in the Pittston strike, as we have been exploring this morning on the Today program, wage and benefit disputes. The crew of a Taiwanese fishing boat is in the United States this morning, charged with illegal fishing and bribery. Scott Miller of KING-TV has a report.
The government has confiscated more than 1 million pounds of illegal salmon at American ports. Now authorities have hard evidence of illegal fishing on the high seas. Videotape, fresh from a Coast Guard cutter, of Taiwanese fishermen tossing salmon overboard. The ship was miles from a legal squid fishing zone. The Taiwanese aren't supposed to catch salmon at all.
The Taiwanese can no longer say that we don't believe all of this is happening.
Fishery agents claim that ships from Taiwan, Japan, and Korea are strip mining the North Pacific with 30-mile-long nets, but proof has been hard to come by. On this ship, they found records indicating the captain has repeatedly fished for salmon, even though it's against the law. The captain allegedly offered bribes if investigators would look the other way. Instead, Taiwan gave the Coast Guard permission to escort the ship to an American Navy base.
Taiwanese have made clear their intention to prosecute the case to the full extent of their law and regulations.
As the crew waits to be taken home to face charges of illegal fishing and bribery, negotiators are ready to resume work on an agreement to regulate the huge drift nets. This video could be an important bargaining chip. Scott Miller for NBC News, Seattle.
A little past 6 minutes after the hour of 8. Again, Brian.
All right, John. Once again, let's go on down to Washington where Willard Scott tells us there's wet stuff ahead. Willard.
Hey, what's new? Hey, how did the party turn out?
The party was nice. The Palmers were lovely, and they were great hosts.
How was the weather?
Weather was good. It held back for it.
How was the spam?
The best money can buy.
I tell you, you can't get that spam catata. That's a wonderful dish. He's been having it since. You can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy, as they say. Landing Zone Delta, Mankato in Minnesota at the airport takes place this weekend. This is an air show honoring the men and women of the Vietnamese War, the Korean War, and World War II. So you check it out this weekend if you like a good air show. Coming to birthday wishes this morning. Incidentally, Bangor, Maine is our pick city. 78 degrees. It will be fantastic. Lakeland, Florida may get a scattered thunder shower too. John McMartin is 100 years old. Look at that. Good-looking man. Look at that hair. He's got more hair. And a pretty lady, Florence Carey of Wilmington, Delaware, 103 years old today. That's a nice town. Ever been to that hotel, Wilmington? Hotel DuPont. That's one of the nicest hotels in America. 2 trouble spots today along the Gulf where there's some scattered thunder showers and a slight risk of tornado activity. And the upper Mississippi and the northern and central plains. It's going to be in the 90s up there today. But see in northwest Washington, well, a little cool front will be slowly wending its way towards the east. And it does so, dropping temperatures in the upper plains by at least 20, 30 degrees, triggering off some thunderstorms. Sizzling heat continues in the southwest, 115 degrees or so, maybe even 116 in Phoenix. Bullhead City, Arizona was 117 yesterday. The heat continues. Here's what's happening in your world even as we speak.
Mostly sunny and in the mid-80s inland today. Partly cloudy tonight, a low around 60 degrees. Partly sunny, more humid tomorrow. A chance of showers later, a high around 80.
Well, that's it. That's all for right now. I got to get my hair combed. That won't take long. Brian Gumbel is standing by in New York. Getting better looking every day, BG.
Thank you, Willard. I appreciate it. Coming up on 9 past the hour, we're back in just a moment. Talk about the debate over rationing of health care. First, a break on a Monday morning. This is Today on NBC. On After 8 this morning, health care rationing. To cope with the rising costs of health care, possible solutions continue to be explored. And getting a serious hearing these days is the rationing of health care. The doctors in the movie MASH are performing triage, checking to see which soldiers have a greater chance to survive. Those are the soldiers who will be first on the operating table. It's a familiar and a logical practice in time of war. The peacetime battle these days is to find enough money to provide adequate health care for all Americans. And so some medical people are using a form of triage, a rationing system, to determine what care should be dispensed. The state of Oregon is close to rationing that care for public health agencies. A bill from the state legislature is expected to be ready for the governor's signature later today, spelling out what tax money will pay for and what it won't. Some of the proposed items being discussed on the high priority list are prenatal care, immunizations, and psychiatric emergencies. Way down on the priority list are organ transplantation, routine dental care for adults, and infertility counseling. Oregon State Senator John Kitzhaber is the prime sponsor of the legislation.
Good cases. We want to keep everybody covered. We want to treat everybody the same. And we want to then look at those services, and perhaps you take off 2 or 3 services at the bottom. You can call that rationing. But everyone remains covered. No one is disenfranchised from the healthcare system. And if we do our job right, the services that will be covered will be those core services that really contribute most significantly to people's health.
In Alameda County, California, which includes the city of Oakland, an expert on medical ethics has been hired to work with health officials to determine what services will be made available. Since most of those utilizing public health facilities in Alameda County are in the low-income category, opponents of health care rationing say that poor people once again are being asked to bear the brunt of funding cutbacks. David Kears is the Director of Health Care Services for Alameda County, and this morning he's at our NBC affiliate in San Francisco, KRON-TV. And good morning, Mr. Kears.
Good morning.
Your critics say rationing care is barbaric. Would you allow that it is at least somewhat callous?
Well, I don't like the system of rationing in this country, but we're not proposing to ration. We're proposing to look at the system now and see if it can be done more fair and rational than it is. But we ration health care now by state and federal policy.
How critical is the financial crunch in Alameda County on health care?
Well, it is critical. It's critical in Alameda County, but it's critical throughout this state and through this country, especially where you're talking about urban counties or urban cities.
If you wind up rationing health care, what happens to those people who wind up on the low priority list?
Well, you asked the question if we wind up rationing health care. I'm saying we ration health care now. And what happens to them now is they get shut out of the system. But we ration by limiting access now. What we're proposing to do, or what we try to do, is take a look at the limited dollars that are made available to us and see if they're spent in the most effective way possible so that, in fact, the best care is given to the most people. But I don't want to defend the system we have today. I don't think it's defensible. In fact, if the state and the federal politicians won't respond or at least acknowledge that the system's in crisis, we have no other alternative to see if, in fact, we can't do a more rational job with limited resources than we're doing today.
Is that where the problem is, in Sacramento?
Well, it's Sacramento and it's the federal government. Neither of those two bodies have really taken any responsibility for what is, in fact, happened in the last 8 to 10 years in the area of health care.
Also at Cron this morning is Dr. Isaac Slaughter, a psychiatrist and the director of mental health for the West Oakland Health Center. Dr. Slaughter served on a committee looking into rationing and is a critic of the concept. And good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Nobody, including Mr. Kears, likes rationing. Are there any alternatives?
Well, I don't know if we should be thinking about alternatives in terms of rationing health. The alternative is for this country and for the state and for the county to find new resources to deal with health care for the poor. You see, we aren't talking about rationing health care for everyone. We're talking about only the poor. And the irony of this situation is that Mr. Keir and all of Mr. Keir's staff have only one reason for being, and that is to produce and provide health care for the poor. And Mr. Keir and all of his staff and all the people who are supposed to do that have their health care insured. But the people they're supposed to provide health care for, we're now being told that they have to ration it.
But he's saying there are no other resources.
He's saying that there are no other resources, but it's a strange fact that in this state that we're living in here, we're talking about here, California, one of the richest states in the Union, we find that we've found enough money to build about 9 prisons in the last 6 or 8 years, and without any concern about health care, we continue to put our dollars in various places other than that. We were able to lock up poor people, so we ought to be able to take care of the health care.
So what's your solution? Just make Sacramento come across with the money? Make the federal government come across the money?
My solution is to re-allot money in such a way that the poor are taken care of. Health care is not a privilege, it's a right. And if it's a right for me to have good health care, then it's a right for the poor people to have good health care. And the irony of it is that all of us who are deciding that the poor can't have good health care have our health care insured. And that's the thing that I'm concerned about.
Mr. Kears, what about all that?
Well, I don't disagree with that. The problem is we've been struggling with this issue and the realignment of resources for years. And until I get more money, or until there is a real sincere effort at the federal and state government either to put more money into health care or to reform health care so that the money they put in is better spent, we still have to deal with the fact is that we have to make choices. And I've asked our community to look at is the choices we make now, are they the best choices on spending these dollars? I agree that, in fact, you need to spend more money. In certain areas, we need to spend a lot more money. But the fact is, if that's not forthcoming, I still have to deal with the system the way it is funded, whether I like it or not.
Dr. Slaughter, I mean, I'm at a loss to understand what it is that you would like to see done in California besides the simple answer of more funding.
I would like to see the state and the county and the cities of California to take a look at their various budgets and reorganize the way they spend the money that they have in the state. This is a rich state, and to say that this state can't afford adequate health care for the poor is asinine. The thing that I'm concerned about is that this state spends its money for various kinds of things, as same as the country does. I read an article before I came here that said that we were now replacing the B-1 bomber with B-1B bombers. That cost $250 million apiece, and not any concern about how much that will take to run that bomber all year. Now, why can't they use some of that money for health care?
Simple question. I wish the answer was as simple. Dr. Slaughter, thank you. And David Kears, thank you very much, sir. We're back in a moment. This is Today on NBC.
Dennis Weaver has become very active in his concern over the environment. But NBC News correspondent Roger O'Neill reports that some of the actor's neighbors in Ridgway, Colorado, think he may be going a bit too far.
Another load of old tires is ready to go to the Weaver place. The recycling center has collected enough old cans for another shipment, too.
Did you read what they had in the Grand Junction paper? Saying that this house is built out of trash? Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous.
Maybe not ridiculous, but certainly strange. Television actor Dennis Weaver and his wife Jerry building a 6,000 square foot house out of old tires and aluminum cans.
Oh, no, you don't see any of that. No, it's going to be so beautiful. It's going to be, in the final analysis, a soft, beautiful Southwest look.
But for the moment, it looks like a house of old tires and aluminum cans. And that's drawing a lot of attention from folks who live around Ridgway, Colorado, where a house of tires and cans doesn't quite mesh with the natural beauty of the San Juan Mountains.
The tires sure look strange. I think that they would make good insulation, however, don't you?
Yes. The tin cans in it, I think, are funny.
Well, it's kind of an interesting concept, huh?
Well, it's about time that somebody figured out what to do with our waste material.
The local building inspector in these parts is Max Clark, and he had certainly never seen anything like this before.
You think of used tires and beer cans, and you think of a junk pile, you know, and this is certainly going to be something other than that.
Originally, Weaver set out to build a solar house made out of logs. But then he met New Mexico architect Michael Reynolds, who's been building solar houses made out of tires and cans.
Okay, that'll work.
The tires, about 2,500 of them, are being used to build the walls of the home. Each is packed with dirt and set on top of one another. The cans, 15,000 so far, are used to fill the voids. When it's all finished, adobe will cover up all of the garbage.
I have the feeling that you take offense to the term garbage house.
Well, it's misleading.
It's very beautiful.
The statement I want to make is that people can live in a convenient way, in a luxurious way, and not damage the planet, not damage the environment. And that's important to me because we've got one planet. You know, somebody said a good planet is hard to find. And we are just literally destroying the place that we live.
Weaver has begun speaking out about his concern for the environment. At a recent conference in Aspen, Colorado, he expressed his opinion that unless man changes his ways, man will destroy the earth.
I don't know. It's just, if we survive as a human species to the 22nd century, the people living there will look back upon this era and say, holy moly, they made it through the age of stupidity.
After 5 weeks of construction, Weaver, who is here almost every day helping, thinks most of the doubters have finally gone away. He is quite simply having a lot of fun building what one of his friends suggested was the Michelin Mansion. This might even be his retirement home.
Every room in the house will have this view. The mountains in the distance. You've got the Vigas up here with the Latias going this way. You got a skylight here. You got beautiful...
For today, Roger O'Neill, NBC News, Ridgway, Colorado.
I wonder if building it that way is cost efficient. If he had it in there and I missed it, I apologize.
I don't know, but I hope they send the crews back out there when they're done. I want to see that finished.
I mean, there's no it's going to look like a normal house when it's done, so it would appear. We're going to come back in just a moment, 24 past. Julian Lennon, after a station break. Back now, 8:30 on a Monday morning. Deborah Norville's misbehaving. She's here for Jane Pauley. I'm Brian Gumbel. We're going to talk about retirement in this half hour. It's a time a lot of folks look forward to. But for some, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Many seniors are looking for jobs these days, and there's a growing number of companies ready to hire them. We'll begin a two-part series in this half hour. Deborah?
Also in this half hour, Julian Lennon will be here. He's got a new album out that he hopes is a big hit. It's just hit the stands. He's going to be going on tour soon, and he'll be to talk about what's going on in his life. The new album is called Mr. Jordan, and he's brought along a video to show us.
And Dr. Art Newleen has a report on stuttering ahead and what parents should know about addressing that problem. Let's get to the news desk one final time for Monday morning. John Paulman.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning again. In the news this morning, for the first time in 7 months, the U.S. and Soviet arms negotiators are once again gathered in Geneva for talks aimed at reducing long-range nuclear weapons. Both sides are working toward cutting long-range weapons by 50%. U.S. officials say they are prepared to offer new ideas on verification, which may help to move the talks forward. The latest round, the first under the Bush administration, expected to last about 6 weeks. In West Germany, fears that the USS Iowa may be carrying nuclear weapons brought members of Greenpeace out in force on Sunday. Although the Navy will not say whether the ship carries nuclear weapons, the environmentalists are hoping to prevent the battleship from docking. They were, at least, in the town of Kiel for a nautical show, but the Iowa did drop anchor offshore. City officials in the town say the sailors are welcome in the area, but the battleship is not. In Sweden this morning, the widow of Prime Minister Olof Palme testified at the trial of the man accused of killing her husband. She told the court that she is absolutely certain that the man charged with the killing is the man who killed the Prime Minister on a street 3 years ago. Voters in Greece have dealt a major setback to the government of Prime Minister Andreas Papandreou. His scandal-plagued government lost the elections on Sunday, but his opponent fell just short of winning a majority of parliamentary seats. It's now possible that Papandreou may salvage another term if he can form a coalition government. West German authorities are investigating a bombing this morning at a British Army barracks. Officials said that just before the blast, 2 men had forced their way into the barracks. Army officers later found 5 suspicious packages, one which exploded. No one was hurt in the blast. Investigators believe that the Irish Republican Army may have been responsible. The nation's big city mayors have taken the first step toward calling for an outright ban on the possession of semi-automatic assault weapons. A committee of the U.S. Conference of Mayors unanimously backed the resolution on Sunday. The entire group is expected to approve it as well. The resolution goes well beyond President Bush's ban on imported assault weapons. It also includes assault weapons made in this country. Funeral plans are still pending this morning for I.F. Stone, the fiery anti-establishment author once dubbed the godfather of New Left journalism. Stone died Sunday of what was termed cardiac complications. He was 81. And in China, almost 1,400 people are now under arrest, rounded up in the continuing government crackdown on the pro-democracy movement. Today in China, with troops still patrolling Tiananmen Square, government television is showing pictures of life returning to normal there. Many businesses which pulled out of China in recent weeks are still staying away. A private study indicates that the nation's middle schools are, in too many cases, just too big to do an effective job. The report from the Carnegie Council recommends that young teens be given more individual attention by school officials. And that's it from this desk. It's now moving up on 8:34. One more time, here's Brian.
All right, John. Thanks very much. Let's go one more time to Washington, where Willard Scott is out and about, and what looks like a pretty good day down the nation's capital. Willard.
You've got to come down and play golf. You'd love this. Today is gorgeous, and it's not too humid. It's probably going to pick up a little in humidity, but it is lovely here. And today I'm going to have a trip to memory lane. I'm going over to Ocean City, Maryland, and spend the day with some of the nicest people in the world. That's a nice little town. Ocean City, Rehoboth, right on up the line. Bethany. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I look forward to that. Also, take a look at this one. This is a T-shirt from the Oakland, Oregon Gaslight Players, presenting 2 great 19th century melodramas, The Banker's Daughter and No Mother to Guide Her. She's only a bird in a gilded cage. Happy birthday to Michael Mike Brazil. What do you mean we lost 2 affiliates on that last song? I can't believe it. Irvine, California. Fine-looking gentleman, 100 years old today. Look at that. My goodness. Incredible. Florence Scott, I'd like to say is a relation, but not. Kingston, New York is 103. A very pretty lady. Very nice. Happy birthday to you. Look at the week ahead. Temperatures below normal in the southeast. Old Dixie below normal in the northwestern quadrant. Above normal, 115 in Phoenix today. Again, good heavens. And dry in the southwest. What is this? WET. That's a radio station, isn't it? In Memphis, it's going to be wet almost everywhere east of the Mississippi through Wednesday. Scattered off and on again showers. And do look out for some strong thunderstorms. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana today. Lower Tennessee Valley could get up 3 to 5 inches of rain. Also strong thunderstorms throughout the upper plain states. North Dakota, even Nebraska, yes. North and South Dakota could see some very strong weather. Been hot up there today. We're going to get up to about 96 degrees, and then cold air moving in, and a little front will come through. Change that, but could bring some severe weather. Here's what's happening in your world even as we speak. We have 116 in Phoenix and sunny skies. 88 in beautiful Minneapolis, St. Paul and sunshine. 81 in Boston and gorgeous. From your nation's capital, the mid-Atlantic states just below the Mason-Dixon line, is it Brian or Debbie?
That's Brian.
Well, okay, tell Debbie I said hello. I was all set to introduce her. I had a great ad lib all set.
Well, why don't you use it anyway? Go ahead.
Pride of Dalton, Georgia. Here is Debbie Norville's favorite partner, Brian Gumbel.
Thank you, Willard.
All right, thanks. For many older Americans, retirement has been more of a financial hardship than a reward for years of service. Still, others find they're bored by inactivity and are looking to get back into the job market. As contributing reporter Howard Felcher discovered, some companies have been receptive to hiring the recently retired.
In the entire history of business, one fact has never changed. If something can add to profits, try it. And thus, re-enter the senior citizen. 68-year-old John Carrillo is part of a new revolution. He's one of a growing army of senior citizens drafted by progressive American businesses to come back to work. And the Bank of America was glad to draft John Carrillo.
Bank of America is beginning to be a trailblazer in the area of hiring older workers.
One of many other companies blazing the same trail is the multi-million-dollar Builders Emporium chain.
We found that the older worker is totally committed, that our turnover has been going down, that our absenteeism went down, and that our productivity has been going up.
As Alice said in Wonderland, it's curiouser and curiouser. The senior citizen, once consigned to the slag heap of retirement, today seems to be the solution many businesses need to remain open for business.
You'd think that a lifetime of pressure as a manager for an international airline would make retirement a pleasure. But Chuck Fletcher tried it, and it wasn't a pleasure. So he went to work for Builders Emporium.
I think the overriding thing was that I'd get up in the morning, what am I going to do today? And when I'd go to bed at night, I would wonder, what am I going to be able to do tomorrow? Play another 18 holes of golf? I just decided this is just not the way I want to live the rest of my years.
It's that work ethic that attracted Builders Emporium to senior workers.
We started targeting the older worker because of not only of the practical life experience that they have, but a lot of our retired workers have been carpenters, have been plumbers, have been contractors, and you know, they're excellent for us. We have retired dentists, retired doctors, retired brigadier general. We probably have retired executives from all, you know, walks of life and industries.
Okay, you have a nice day now.
And by the jobs they've done, seniors have destroyed the biases against hiring seniors. For example, it's simply not true that seniors get sick more than younger people do. And besides that, they are also not so likely to go surfing, to go sunning, to go skiing. Seniors go to work. The fact is, senior citizens miss only about 3 days of work per year. Builders Emporium's bosses were willing to take a chance on senior citizens, but bankers don't take chances. The word banker is synonymous with caution. Yet the Bank of America broke through this taboo of caution and started hiring senior citizens. Now, what would make one of the largest banks in the world change its pattern of employment?
Statistics will tell you that we are an aging society.
John Carrillo needed more income. The bank needed more employees. So he was recruited from the army of senior citizens, hired and trained because he was good for the bank and the bank was good for him.
My Social Security was one of the retirements, and then my pension was the other, my union pension was the other retirement. And both together weren't enough money to make me last for the whole month.
So far, only a few enlightened businesses pay court to senior citizens. It's not as if any senior citizen can have a job just for the asking. Many businesses have not yet awakened to the profit charm of gray-haired employees. But the trend is there. Though the mating dance has just begun, a marriage is in the offing.
I'm finding most companies are greatly interested in hiring older workers now.
I enjoy it because it's something different, something I never have done all of my life.
I personally feel that the older worker is very, very dedicated.
I will never retire.
Howard will have more news for and about seniors tomorrow. We're coming up on 41 past the hour. Deborah's back in a moment with Julian Lennon right after this.
It's been about 3 years since Julian Lennon has brought a new album to the music scene, but this summer the hiatus ends with the release of Mr. Jordan, an album which is all about second chances. And good morning and welcome back to Today.
Thank you.
At the age of 26, you're worried about second chances?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Really?
I felt hard done by on the second album because I was very pressured by that. And, I didn't think I did a very capable job of showing that I was capable of still writing good songs. The second album was very important to me, and I was under a lot of pressure to come in on a schedule. And again, I didn't feel I'd done a good enough job. And after the first album,
which was such a terrific success.
Yeah, it was very necessary for me to still keep going and writing good songs.
Where was the pressure coming from, yourself or from the business?
From the business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really literally had to take some time out and step away from that and make sure that I went away for a long enough time so that I could write something decent and that I was happy with.
You went away and you came back with a really different sound for anybody who particularly is familiar with your first album, which that got so much more publicity, shall we say, than the second one. We've got a clip of the video from Mr. Jordan, so let's roll it and take a look and a listen. That's not the Julian Lennon we remember from the other album. You got a real different whole everything, sound, music, the whole bit.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get a lot more aggressive musically than I had been in the past. I knew I had it in me, and it was just a question of waiting and time and progression and working with different people, because every time that I played the last two albums on stage, it felt a lot stronger to me, and I said, well, why can't I capture this on an album? And
that's what you did. Most of this you recorded live in the studio.
Yeah, that's true.
Unlike mixing it and putting 12 different tracks together.
Well, I mean, it's a bit of both, but the basis of it was all live, yeah.
Is there a stronger sense for you when you do it that way?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a real group effort that way, rather than putting bits and bobs in at different separate times where musicians aren't necessarily working together in the same room.
Right.
Everybody's in the same room and screaming or playing or doing whatever. And I think you get the sense that it was a project done by almost like a band. I mean, it is a band situation.
Yeah. And is this the same band that you take out on the road?
It's a different band from the past. I decided to start everything fresh this time round with my second chance, so to speak.
You feel pretty good about this one, don't you?
I'm over the moon about this one. See, before I looked at the other albums that I've done as, well, I look at it as art in a way. And I sort of looked at them as, well, I could have changed something in them. You know, I could have changed the color in one. It's almost like a painting. Whereas this one, I have no problems with it whatsoever. I worked on it hard enough that I don't find anything wrong with it at all.
Good
Whereas some, like the last album, I heard it recently and I sort of cringe. And
that has my name on it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Rolling Stone, in talking about Mr. Jordan, says there's one cut that they say reminds us of the Penny Lane days of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And there's another one they say, gosh, it sure does sound like David Bowie. You almost get the sense that no matter what you do, John Lennon's son, you're not going to please everybody.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Well, I've got to the point now where I'm just going to get out there and do what I want to do. I find it a little easier with this album. It is that much different for me, and I'm a lot more comfortable with it. And I feel that a lot of people that are making the criticisms are Beatles fans.
Right.
But I feel with this album it's different enough that I'm stepping into the public who are more my age, my generation, so to speak. Not that it's wrong to have people from the past Beatles fans liking the album, but it is slightly written more for my crowd, so to speak.
Right. There are a lot of, I guess you're never going to get out from under the shadow.
I don't know.
Or will you? I mean, are you aware of it anymore? I mean, because you've been doing this now for, what, 7 years, I think?
Yeah, when I first started out, I never felt the pressure. I mean, really, I mean...
Oh, now that's not true, because I heard stories of you sneaking around to recording studios so you could, you know, do your little mixes without everybody watching and saying, hey, what's this?
I was just aware of trying to make things sound good before anybody heard anything. But I mean, my aim was to go out there and write good music and enjoy it. And it was only when the criticism came in that I was... the comparisons came in that I was singing like that on purpose, that it became a problem and a real pressure.
Yeah.
And it was a real catch-22 situation where I was kind of stuck, you know, what could I do in that situation? So that's why I did spend a lot of time out making sure I knew what I wanted to do and what direction I wanted to go in.
Mr. Jordan is the title of the album. It's taken from the movie Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which is sort of an earlier version of Heaven Can Wait, which more people might be familiar with.
That's right.
The angels come down and waved the little wand and said, go for it again?
Well, the problems that I had in the past dealt a lot with business, and for a change I decided to, over the past 3 years, take control of the business, be in charge of my own career, and obviously be a lot more responsible. And therefore, if something goes wrong these days, there's only one person I can blame, and at least I know I've put 100% of my time and effort into it.
Well, the next effort is a tour which starts in West Germany on Friday.
This is true.
And you'll be in the States the end of July.
That's true.
We look forward to seeing you then. Good luck.
Thank you.
Julian Lennon, thanks a lot. We'll be back with more in just a moment, almost 10 minutes after this.